Good morning, colleagues. Can I take a moment to welcome you all today to the Environment and Community Committee meeting of Toowoomba Regional Council. This meeting is open to the public and will also be live streamed, acknowledging those joining us in the gallery today and those who have driven a fair distance to be in the gallery from the outer reaches of the broader Toowoomba region. Can I acknowledge we are live and online, and those people who are watching via Council's social media channels. Can I also remind my colleagues that you must click Join Meeting in Board View for the Environment and Committee meeting for this month. I'll begin, as is noted, to acknowledge the Aboriginal parties whose songlines traverse the lands we meet on today, the Western Waka Waka, Guyabal and Jarrawa, and Bigabul peoples, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging for the broader Toowoomba region, and they hold the rich traditions and bold ambitions of Australia's First Nations people. Colleagues, we'll move to item 2, which is attendance, including apologies, leave of absence and declarations of conflict of interest. Now, we have an apology. Councillor Carol Taylor is running a little late. We do need a resolution to acknowledge her absence at this stage. Noting leave of absence, no resolution required, so we'll have... We do need a motion. We do need a motion to acknowledge Councillor Carol Taylor's absence. Thank you to the Mayor for moving, Councillor Edwina for seconding. Colleagues, all those in favour? Passed unanimously. We will do leave of absence at the special or ordinary meetings, should we have any. As far as conflicts of interest, we have had one come through today, a declarable conflict of interest, and I'll hand to Councillor Gary Gardner.
I inform the meeting over the declarable conflict of interest matter as defined in Section 150 of the Local Government Act 2009. The nature of my interest is as follows. Declarable conflict of interest arises because FKG is providing in-kind sponsorship for the Toowoomba Place Civic Precinct. The sponsorship will be in the manner of project management for the proposed project. Although I do have a declarable conflict of interest matter, I do believe a reasonable person could have a perception of bias because the project is a community-based project being proposed by Mulmerran Commerce and Progress. I wish to participate in the decision in relation to this matter. I acknowledge that eligible councillors must now determine present to clause 150S of the Local Government Act 2009 whether I may participate in the decision about the matter, including by voting on the matter, must lead the meeting, including any area set aside for public, may participate in the decision about the matter subject to conditions.
Thanks, Councillor Gary Gardner. So the nature of your conflict is FK Gardner is providing in-kind sponsorship to the Donville Place project. You've asked for your colleagues to now determine if you have a conflict or not. Colleagues, are there any questions for Councillor Gardner or comments? Mayor McDonald?
Yeah, just a comment, if I could, just at the moment. Keeping in mind what we're actually deciding on today, which is quite separate from any negotiation that may take place between the entity, which in this case is Mulmerran Commerce and Progress. Today's decision is simply around the negotiation to execute a partnership agreement to develop Donville Place. And this is, and maybe the CEO might have some view on this. The idea of this motion is to allow the Mulmerran Progress Association or Commerce and Progress to undertake the works in consultation with council. However, there would be no procurement by council in this case. So it is actually separate from a council decision. The only decision today is whether we actually accede to a request by the chamber to allow them to deliver the project. So I just wondered from a CEO perspective whether you thought this was relevant. It's certainly relevant to raise it, and I thank Councillor Gardner for raising this because it definitely is. And there could be perceptions of one thing or the other, but this negotiation would not be with Toowoomba Regional Council.
That may be the case, but I think the issue that council laws need to consider is whether, by making this decision, is the council likely to enjoy a benefit or suffer a loss as a relation to this. So I think that's a decision you just need to consider. Councillors, if you make the decision with eyes wide open and stating your reasons, I think you just need to make that acknowledge his declaration and then make your decision as you see fit.
So just from Councillor Garden, if I could ask you a question, noting that it is a community project, you've highlighted all of those things. That aside, if the generosity of FKG to do the project management as you've outlined would still be at a cost to FKG. It's a donation.
Cost to FKG, yeah.
It's a donation to FKG. So therefore, the test of gain or loss to the company would probably stand true because obviously you're donating, valuable time and expertise to complete the job. That being the case, do you feel that you would then have a prescribed conflict of interest, given that it would be something that would have a material cost to the organisation? There would be a donation of some description, separating it from a declarable conflict of interest to a prescribed conflict. If there is a material, a financial loss, that it is directly to the company, given that this is a pretty unique situation because you're actually donating your time, effort and money. It's costing you money, so it's opposite to actually getting a gain, but it's still a material
It's unusual,
impact.
isn't it?
It's very unusual, but it's still a material impact. So therefore, I want to see if you could, and this is where because if it's a prescribed conflict, there is no decision for councillors to make. If it's declarable, there is a decision for councillors to make, potentially. So that's where I wanted some advice, potentially from the CEO, and I note that Bailey is in the room as well, that could provide assistance through you, Chair, if the CEO requires that.
Thanks, Mayor. CEO?
Councillors, if you just go to your Managing Conflict of Interest guide that you've got, should have in front of you there, and I acknowledge it's the generosity here that's being acknowledged. It's not a benefit in any way, shape or form. But if you go to the prescribed conflicts of interest, have a prescribed conflict of interest. Prescribed conflict of interests include donations, gifts and loans and sponsored travel or accommodation totaling 2,000 or more in relevant terms. That's usually in the positive in that the council is receiving that benefit. But I suppose you could read into that the other way if you wish to. It's actually not a benefit per se that they're actually doing. Is it a matter that it relates to a contract with council? Not directly, indirectly. Matter relates to an application of submission to council. Not directly, again, council's interest. An appointment, employment matters, no, it's not anything to do with that. So then you move to declarables. Declarables include donations, gifts and loans, sponsored or travelling, accommodation totaling 2,500 to 2,000 in relevant terms, interest where a reasonable person might think you could be biased. I would think you could probably declare it as a declarable conflict of interest on that basis, and then the council could just make a determination and put your reasons forward.
Thank you, Brian.
So, Brian, I'll just ask the prescribed conflict of interest contracts with council, including sponsorships under the prescribed. Would you classify this into?
This, in relation to this is a matter between the Millmerran Association and council. It's not a matter between the council law and council directly. So I think that this is in relation to if the council law had a contract directly with council, then he would definitely be prescribed, but it's not that case.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brian. No, I appreciate that. So therefore we slip to declarable conflict, and I'd like to test the idea that the councillor could stay in the room for the discussion but remove himself from the vote. right? So therefore it protects the councillor, but he's enabled then to contribute to the conversation. I think would be the fairest way to deal with this, just as a protection for council and reputational risk. So I would move, given the information provided, that Councillor Gary can stay in the room and participate in the discussion, however, would not vote on the matter.
Thank you, Mayor. Did we get that down? Now, before I go to a seconder, even I did have two other questions, Mayor. If we can indulge, Councillor Rebecca, you were having a question on that.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Through you to Councillor Gardner. The question was whether or not the work by FKG, if there was a dollar amount attached to it, would come to more than $2,000.
Yes. So the job is covered by insurance then? I said, we're doing a contract with Toowoomba, so they're covered by insurance and workers' comp and all that. Then I donate it back. It's a round robin.
Thanks, Councillor Rebecca. I have Councillor Melissa. You had a question?
Thanks, Chair. Now, I was actually going to suggest exactly what the Mayor just suggested, was that Councillor Gardner stay in the room but not vote.
I do have some more questions, Councillor Melissa, but would you like to second the Mayor's motion at the appropriate time? Great. Moved by the Mayor, seconded by Councillor Melissa. But before we go to that vote, Councillor Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, councillors, I do, and it's in relation to point 2 of the recommendation. I do hope I'm on the right one here. I have a different view, in as much that we are likely committing council. It says in point 2, council including additional funding of $30,000 per annum in future operational budgets for operation, maintenance activities and annual depreciation costs of the new assets. I don't know, I always say that the decision is this much, but the decision-making process is this much. And if I'm aligned to a job, I'll put myself in the same position. If I'm aligned to a job or I have an interest or a perceived interest, it's not about the 11 people in this room, it's about the perception of the general public, then I would probably prefer to protect myself. And given that part of this decision is likely to, depending on the decision outcome, is likely to impact council's budget, operational budget. So that's my view. I could be right, wrong or otherwise, but I think the safest thing to do would be, well, if it was me, I'm not prescribing anything for anyone. I'm raising that question that we need to think about that as part of the decision and the implications of, aside from any other arrangements, and particularly as Councillor Gardner is part of this boardroom.
Thanks, Councillor Bill. Councillor Gardner, did you have any comments regarding that, or are you happy to take those comments on board? Or?
Yeah, I'll take them on board.
Thanks.
I didn't know it was so hard to give money away, but anyway.
So, thanks for that comment. We do have a motion, colleagues, and that I already have a mover in the Mayor and seconded by Councillor Melissa, that Councillor Gary Gardner may participate in a decision about the matter by discussing it at the meeting, and then must leave the place at which the meeting is being held, including any area set aside for the public, while the eligible councillors further discuss and vote on the matter. The reason being, may participate in the decision, not vote on the matter due to his company donating services to the Millmerran Commerce and Progress Inc. I have a mover, I have a seconder. We can go into debate on that. Is there any need to, colleagues? I'll ask for all those in. Hang on.
Just change it with discussion.
That Councillor Gary Gardner may participate in discussion about the matter. Mayor?
Yeah, look, I think we're overcomplicating this, to be honest. I think the motion really just needs to read, the Councillor Gary Gardner may participate in the discussion about the matter, however, is not available, is not allowed to vote, or will not, however, cannot vote on the matter.
Wording's quite specific there. However, then must leave the place at which.
Yeah, so that's fairly standard.
Is that standard? I thought that was if you're not in at all. It's the same? Okay, well, if we're sticking by the rules, then that's fine. It just seems fairly convoluted to what we're trying to achieve, but
Take out even at the meeting, I think. So we all happy with this?
okay.
The Councillor Gary Gardner may hang on. Thanks to our tech team for doing so well. Colleagues, I will read it out because we have had a bit of wordsmithing again. And thank you to our team for your diligence. That Councillor Gary Gardner may participate in discussion about the matter at the meeting and then must leave the place at which the meeting is being held, including any area set aside for the public, which the eligible councillors further discuss and vote on the matter. You happy with further discuss when you're out, or just vote? Oh, that's the standard wording. We have a mover in the Mayor, we have a seconder in Councillor Melissa. No reason to go into debate, councillors. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The motion is carried. Councillor Gardner, you're welcome to stay in the meeting. Sorry, who was against that vote? We need 1, 2. McMahon, Cahill, Gardner did not vote. So, colleagues, we move then to item 3. Thank you for your patience and those in the gallery. Community proposal, Domville Place, Millmerran. I will hand over to begin with to our General Manager, Nick Hauser of Environment Community, to start this one off.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors. Councillors, this report seeks your consideration of a proposal developed by the Millmerran Commerce and Progress Incorporated for a community-led redevelopment of Domville Place. I believe that you're very well versed and familiar with the proposal. We've had a couple of information sessions and the report attaches all of the relevant documents for you. The recommendations already been discussed a little bit, but essentially we're seeking your consideration of whether or not to provide in principle approval for the Millmerran Commerce to develop that site, and then we would subsequently develop the appropriate agreements with the Progress Association.
Colleagues, the report is in front of you. We will start with questions. Nick, did you want to hand over to anyone to explain it at the start, or are you happy to?
I think the report's quite detailed in terms of the issues. It addresses all of the issues as we see them. So if there are any questions from councillors in relation to those issues that have been identified and addressed through the report, we're happy to take those questions and answer them. And really it's over to you, happy to provide advice or guidance to support your decision making.
Thanks, Nick. Colleagues, we will open for questions. Mayor McDonald.
Thanks. Thanks, Chair. Look, I really don't have a question, to be honest. I think the report's a sound report, and we obviously had a deputation from the Millmerran Commerce and Progress, and acknowledge President Nikki McQueen in the room today representing the Commerce. Councillor Tim, I did put through via resolve, Chair, an additional dot point 3, an additional part to the motion 3. Hopefully that's been successfully come through the machine. Here we go. 3 is simply that council receive an end of project summary from the Millmerran Commerce and Progress, identifying learnings from the process undertaken that may benefit similar community-led projects. And the simple reason for that is that we can close the loop from this process, which was conversations between Progress and our Parks team, and I congratulate and thank the Parks team for working closely with the Progress to get to a point of a deputation and then go through this process of seeking community support to get the project done. It seems to me a very solid blueprint for any future works that may come up from a community-led project, whether it's parks or something similar. So I just wanted councillors to consider putting that on as the third dot point, just by way of closing out the project and giving some learnings from it.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So that third dot point, for those who are listening, council receive an end of project summary from the Millmerran Commerce and Progress Inc., identifying learnings from the process undertaken that may benefit similar community-led projects. Councillor O'Shea. Oh, you're happy to second the Mayor's motion. Colleagues, are there any questions? Councillor Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm a bit confused because the beginning of the recommendation says that council consider whether to provide in principle, but that terminology is pretty much locking us into a beyond in principle agreement to a project outcome. In other words, it sounds like an acquittal to me. So what are we doing?
I might actually ask the CEO to comment on that.
If council, if council was to support this issue, you would change that recommendation to that council provide in principle. You'd take out the word consider. So the recommendation has been made by the Parks team saying it's ultimately council's decision to do so. Just by dropping off those couple of words would be the ultimate decision that I would recommend that you would consider adopting if you wish to support the project.
Okay. So another question, if I may, Chair. So where do we sit in the space of our park strategy and the other body of work that we're doing out there? We're on a journey with that out there in regards to flood mitigation and other parts of the community having concerns about those real matters that flood their property every time it comes through the centre of town there. Are we progressing that? Are we going to juggle two balls in the air at the same time, or are we doing this one, or are we doing that one, or what?
So I'll answer that. Thank you. It can be all of those. So the options that are provided in the report are we can maintain the strategic direction, look at developing up Factory Dam Park, which I think is a 2028 item in the LGIP, and allow community development of Domville Place, which will result in an oversupply from a strategic planning perspective. The other option we've provided is that you make the decision to go ahead or allow Domville Place to go ahead, and we look for another way of meeting the district park need or gap in Millmerran, though I've been quite frank in the report that there isn't an immediately obvious solution to that. So, I can say we can do that, but I'm not confident that we'll come up with a different answer. Or the last option is that you don't agree to proceed with Domville Place. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Councillor Bill. Is that your questions answered? Colleagues, are there any other questions in this proposal, noting you've all been fairly well briefed on the matter through the previous channels? So, colleagues, with no further questions, I have a motion, I have a mover, I have a seconder. I will read out...
Yeah, just check to have those two words removed in principle, Chair, if you don't mind.
Might have to scroll it.
Consider whether, so we need to take out...
Take out the consider word.
The council approve for the Millmerran Chamber of Commerce to fund.
Just before we move to reading it out, I have a question from Councillor Shine, please.
Yes, I apologise, Chair, I was temporarily absent. Just wondering, Sally or Dick, whether the current program for the Dam Factory project will be delayed in any way because of this project going ahead, if it does.
I don't think so, no, because it's not going to be an impost on a capital budget.
Thanks, Councillor Shine. So we'll read out the motion in its entirety, colleagues, that Council provide, in principle, approval for the Millmerran Commerce and Progress Incorporated to fund and develop Domville Place, Millmerran, as generally outlined in the site master plan, attachment 1, subject to the following. 1, the Chief Executive Officer being authorised to negotiate and execute with Millmerran Commerce and Progress Incorporated a partnership agreement to develop Domville Place, Millmerran that articulates the parties' obligations and responsibilities, including but not limited to legal and insurance arrangements, final design details, construction specifications, approval and variation arrangements, and the return of assets to council upon completion of this project. 2, council including additional funding of $30,000 per annum in future operational budgets for operation maintenance activities and annual depreciation costs of the new assets. And 3, that council receive an end of project summary from the Millmerran Commerce and Progress Incorporated, identifying learnings from the process undertaken that may benefit similar community-led projects. Just a question from the Mayor.
Very quickly, I'm not sure that we do need the words "in principle," simply because we've said subject to the following. I think you need. I think it's just the council approve the Millmerran. I think it starts to get confusing. So if we can just consider moving those, just have the council approve. Right, with that change, I'm happy to move it.
Seconder, you're happy with that? Colleagues, is there any reason to go into debate? With that, noting Councillor Garrick, there is a need to go into debate. Councillor Bell was the mover. Mayor McDonald, I'll ask you to sum up, please.
Oh, look, I'm happy to reserve my right to speak at the end.
Thank you, Mayor. Speaker against the motion? Councillor Bill, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to be very clear. I think it's great that a community steps up and gets skin in the game to get outcomes for their immediate area. There's no mistake about that. The unfortunate part about it, whether it's, and it's not a laying blame at anyone's foot here, but the most unfortunate part that it appears to me that there's a disconnect between what the community, council or parties, or is it all the community, sees as priorities for their place. When we have a very, very important issue that's gone on for years around flooding people's properties. And we appear to be out of sync. Whilst $30,000 doesn't seem much in the scheme of the size of the budget that we deal with here in this region, collectively, and I note the comments about, you know, auditing this or having an acquittal type process so that we can benefit from the learnings and it can be used to guide other communities, and that's very positive. But collectively, the amount of public space and places and requests we would receive across the region, $30,000 adds up pretty quickly on an operational budget. When we are managing sustainability issues right across the region and the networks of council. I'm always on about whole of life and asset management, and whilst it's $30,000 in today's dollars on an operational budget, with rising input costs of materials and labour, I could imagine what will that be in 5 or 10 years' time? Because we're talking about an asset that will be here for a minimum of 60, if we're lucky, 100 years. And there will be asset renewal over that time, probably on about a 10 to 15 year cycle. So I'm not happy to remove the words "in principle" because we are locking ourselves into, and I say again, I support a community doing something for themselves and partnering with both private and council. Absolutely brilliant. But it's unfortunate that it seems to be out of sync and out of sequence. And those strategies and master plans were developed with a great deal of community input. And we've spent a great deal of time and money to do those. So I just wonder what the value is of those master plan strategies for communities right across the region when we step outside of those. And yes, they're a guide, but we need to be cognizant of what we're potentially putting in train here. I think there's a body of work for us to collectively do to ensure that the community's wishes and the strategies line up so that we avoid the one-off jobs. And that, Nick...
Councillor Bill, can I just pause you for a second? Noting, Councillor Gary, you're back in the room. We are still in the debate phase of this motion, which is the part that you probably need to be removed from. Yeah, sorry, perhaps thought you were finished.
Clarification from the motion earlier, I think we said discuss. I reckon that should say debate rather than debate and vote, if that's the intent of what is said. But anyway, we'll deal with that another time. But if that is the intent of the direction that the council is removed for the debate and the vote, then that's what needs to happen. It's my opinion that it was only for the vote, but
sure,
I'm
okay,
open for the
it did say
interpretation.
further discuss and vote in the motion. CEO, I need clarification here, please.
I think once you've got a motion that's before the council, you're actually in the voting process. So I think at that time you'd have to actually leave at this point.
Sorry for the confusion. Councillor Gardner. Councillor Bill, the floor is yours.
Yep,
Thank you.
Pretty much finished up there, Chair. You know, I say again, if we've got master plans, not just for this community, but for all the communities across the region, and we vary outside of that every time we do have a request, then I question the validity of us actually spending the time, energy and effort of doing these master plans at a great expense and with in-depth community involvement in the preparation of those as well, because they're tested. We spoke about a major one yesterday here in the City Centre Master Plan. So that's why I can't support the motion. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Bill. Do we have a speaker in favour of the motion? Councillor O'Shea.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I speak in favour as a seconder of this motion. I do acknowledge and respect the points that Councillor Carl has raised. They are very, very valid, but I think the responses that we've had from the staff obviously gives me confidence, obviously, that we can still, to use a Chris Tate expression, we can chew gum and walk at the same time. So we can still be in sync with our strategies, our master plans, our park hierarchies and things that we're doing, as well as accommodating for something of this particular nature. And I think it's a really important decision today for us from a possible future point of view from our region. I think it's pretty obvious that engagement and empowerment of regional areas is a priority of this table. We've spoken about it a lot. We've spoken about, of course, the Mayor's proposal around that we voted on in terms of a new regional representation structure. So we're doing all that we can to engage and empower people within these particular communities. In order for engagement and empowerment to work in those communities, the communities need to be able to be empowered themselves to be able to take a part in it. And this is a prime example of a community here through the Millmerran, led by the Millmerran Commerce and Progress, that has shown the initiative, that has shown the agility, obviously, to work with its community to identify what they feel is certainly a need for this particular community. And not only that, to go through the process here, and as we've sort of seen here, to be able to fund it themselves as well. Council, then, we've been able to work hand in glove with that around, obviously, we all understand and appreciate probably what's not seen on a surface level, and that is those whole of life costs. So in terms of future operational budget, so we're able to account for that as well. But I think with the addition of that third point that the Mayor has put in here as well. I think that is a really important one for us as well. So to receive an end of project summary, but then also to identify learnings from the process undertaken that can benefit similar community-led projects. If we could have opportunities like this through other parts of our community, as we've always said again about engagement and empowerment of these particular communities and how they can be involved in their community and ways that we can do it, this can be just another way. We know the financial constraints, we know everything that we face as a local government, and we're not alone in that battle. So we have to be able to do things differently, and there's different ways and different opportunities to provide for these different communities, and this is a prime example of it. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity that we need to make the most of, and I congratulate everyone that's involved in it and look forward to seeing, if it is to be successful, how it unfolds. And hopefully it's not the last time with a regional area in our community that we're talking about something like this. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor O'Shea. We are in debate. Is there a speaker against the motion? In the absence of one, Mayor, would you like to sum up? Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed, Chair. I do appreciate it, and thanks, Councillor Carr, for obviously giving an alternate view to what this motion is. I guess if we reflect a little bit on where we are as a council, the financial constraints that we have, there is no doubt that we will be leaning on private enterprise, we'll be leaning on community, and we'll be needing any assistance we possibly can. I said from the outset of this term and the tail end of last term that we have an opportunity as a council to work closer with our community to get the outcomes that they deserve while maintaining our financial sustainability. To do that, it takes trust, it takes the ability to listen, and it takes the ability for us to do things differently. This is a clear opportunity early on in this term where we actually have that chance to do all of those things in one project. To do all of those, and timing is important here. There is no doubt that the timing, that the council is doing work for a department, a state department, that's all tied in beautifully for this. This won't happen all the time, but it's happened on this occasion. Council also approved $5,000 through our economic development grants to assist the Millmerran Progress, who spent $3,000 of their own to go out, master plan, research, do the work, consult with community, understand what their desires and wishes are. If we weren't going to support this, we probably should have thought about supporting the $5,000 economic development grant to encourage and give motivation and build expectation that something was going to happen. So this is our chance to make good on this promise of, we've given you the grant, we support what you're doing, let's now see it through. The biggest challenge for us and all local governments at the moment is to get cut through into community through communication, when there's so many different varieties of communications coming to individuals at any given time. This is a great project for us to use as a communication piece on how this council is committed to doing things differently and better. Now, the project at the end of the day will determine how better that is. But here's our chance to do that. So I actually think this is a moment in time for this council, to be honest. This is a clear moment in time where we can actually lean into a community wish. They've done the research. This is a project they desire. It won't hamper any other works because it's funded from community. I think this is just a great outcome, and I'd encourage councillors to support it. Thanks, Chair.
Just summing up, colleagues, we've had debate. We have the motion in front of you. All that's left for me to do is ask for all those in favour, please. I do need to hold your hands up because I do need a division. So we have McDonald, O'Shea, Shine, Menteifel, Farquhar, Melissa Taylor, Von Hoff and McMahon. Those against, please. Councillor Cahill against. Noting Councillor Gardner did not vote. Councillor Melissa Taylor, Carol Taylor absent. I do apologise, I almost said the wrong one. Councillor Carol Taylor absent. You got that all down? You're here, of course. You're happy with that, Wendy and team? Good. Colleagues, thank you for your time today. With that, we will conclude the Environment and Committee meeting at 9:41. Thank you all very much, and please remember to log off in your resolve.
All right, we're all here. Right to go. Thank you, Wendy. All right, I'd like to welcome you all to the Finance and Business Strategy Committee meeting of Toowoomba Regional Council. This meeting is open to the public and will be live streamed. I'd like to thank those of you who are in the room with us today and acknowledge everyone watching via Council's social media channels. Now, councillors, I remind you to click join the meeting in board view, please. So the time is 10:55. So I'd like to open the meeting and acknowledge our traditional owners. I acknowledge the Aboriginal parties whose songlines traverse these lands we meet on today, the Western Waka Waka, Jibal and Jarawar peoples, and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging, for they hold the knowledge, rich traditions and bold ambitions of Australia's first people. Now, I do have an apology for Councillor Carol Taylor, so I do need a resolution. So moved by Councillor Rebecca, seconded by Mayor Jeff. All those in favour? It's carried. I do also note that I have no advised declarations of prescribed conflict of interest and no declarations of declarable conflict of interest advised. So if that changes, councillors, please let me know. So the first point on our agenda, point 3, is a review of the Fraud and Corruption Control Framework, 2.33 Fraud and Corruption Control Policy, and I'll hand over to our author, Bailey Garcher.
Good morning, councillors, through you, Chair. Essentially, I take the report as tabled. Just as quickly as background, the internal audits, might have been 2019, 2020, identified that we need to improve our fraud and control framework, which included reviewing the policies and creating new registers. So for the new councillors, how this has evolved is through that internal audit. So we've done a complete revision. We've got a team internally that's in the risk team that's gone through these documents. We've also sought some external advice on putting it back into an ISO standard level. So this is the policy in itself. What is still outstanding that we're working on is a group of risk champions. We're working on the risk registers for the fraud and control process, which at the present are being drafted and hopefully be available at the next audit committee meeting, if not at the next, the following. So that will complete the fraud and control review and risk program. So I'll take questions. And
Mayor Jeff.
Thanks very much, Chair, through you, Bailey. Over to you. Attachment 2, the track changes. Can you just walk us through some of those? A lot seem fairly superficial, but there is quite a fair bit taken out as well, and some changes. Can you just highlight perhaps those changes and what impact that may have? And obviously that would be then determined through the risk register as to what impact it might have on the organisation.
The way to view this is to probably ignore, let's put aside the 2019 policies that we've got in place and look at what we've developed. So the aim is to look at preparing something for 2024 and essentially bring it to an ISO standard. Virtually, the impact is that at present we're not producing. We don't have a clear guidance on what our process is at present, producing risk registers for council. So this has sort of brought everything back into where we should be from an ISO standard level. So the impact is essentially following the process, identifying the risks and producing the outcome risk registers for council to review on a regular basis.
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, to Bailey. When you say compliant to an ISO standard, has that been approved as ISO approved, this policy at this stage?
It hasn't been approved as an ISO standard because we haven't got ISO certification on this policy, but what we've tried to work towards is producing a document that was in line with ISO standards.
Councillor Bill.
Thanks, Chair. Bailey, I guess the first part of my question, you've probably answered. Are we looking to achieve ISO with this policy? Given that you're lining it up with those standards, ultimately, are we going to go for that accreditation with regards to this?
That decision hasn't been made. This ISO's just been used as a guide, as a benchmark. That would be sort of if we're going to go for ISO standard on an item, I think we'd have to have a look at internally through ELT and CEO to see because if we go for one ISO standard certification, it's how the business wants to operate. So this has been a good benchmark, but the answer is no. So we haven't prepared this to say, look, we're going to get certified for ISO.
Yeah, look, the only reason I'm asking is, I mean, this is a pretty important document, a very important document from the reach it has across the entire organisation. I would call it a very strategic document. And I guess I'm not being facetious by asking this, but with ISO alignment and standards, is there an opportunity for us to ask our insurer to reduce our premiums because we line up with those standards?
Yes, but you'd have to have an overall council ISO certification to achieve that. And I don't think that's something that, that we're in a position to do so at present.
Yeah, okay.
Councillor Rebecca.
Thanks very much, Chair. Through you, Bailey, thank you for your work on this and the team's work on this. My question is, fraud and corruption are obviously incredibly serious and go to the heart of confidence in public officials and public service, and it's something that none of us stand for, have any tolerance for, and it's something that no one in the community has any tolerance for either. When there is fraud or corruption that has been identified, investigated and substantiated, where can the public see that has occurred?
So if it's in relation to, it depends what level. For example, if it's in all respect and no assumptions or accusations, if it's councillors, it's going to be fairly obvious, okay? If it's ELT or CEO, it's going to be fairly prominent as well. If it's internal, we've got obligations to reporting to regulatory authorities. They either investigate themselves or defer back to us to investigate, and then there's a process. And then we've obviously got internal registers of recording reports and outcomes. So technically, those registers aren't publicly available. So and anyone that's subject to any of those allegations from an employment point of view is obviously given procedural fairness and process, and they actually have review rights as well. So technically, it's an internal confidential process which can be accessed, but
if I might, thanks, Chair. I'm not saying I fully appreciate and am grateful that there's those controls and there's due process. I'm saying when that has all been exhausted and it's been substantiated, where can the public see that has occurred, or is it the case that they cannot see that that's occurred?
We don't keep a public register available.
Does the CCC?
They may. Yes, they would.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Because essentially, when they refer a matter back to us, the CCC, they have various ways of. We're virtually acting as their agent. Okay, so it's reported to them. They can either investigate themselves or they refer back to us. And generally, what they do, like in a matter like that, they would commonly say, "Can you please give us an update when it's completed?" So there would be there's various matters that we handle that we have to provide updates. So, yeah.
Councillor Carey.
No, thanks, Chair. Similar lines to Councillor Rebecca's question to control and eradicate. And the second one was would it include stealing, as opposed, does that constitute fraud or corruption? Might be corruption, but not fraud, one assumes.
We have to go through. There's a matrix that you go through reporting the CCC. Essentially, a theft of goods would be reported depending on what it is. For example, we're not going to report a stolen pen. We have to make sure it's a certain level of materiality before reporting.
No, but my first part of my question was, has there been a has this report been generated because of any unusual or upsurge in worrying conduct by members of the staff?
No. So this report, like anything with the policy number 2 on it, has to be brought to council. So all policies at the level of 2 prior to my time have been determined by council that must be brought for approval and review to the council. And with all our internal auditing from time to time, generally one of the focuses is policies and procedures that internal auditors focus on. And this is a feedback revision due to the internal audit feedback report. And for those councillors, just for information, within the audit pack, there is a list of all of the items. They are reported on a no-names basis, so you can actually see all the events that council has in relation to some of the questions you're asking.
Councillor Tim.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, Bailey. I'm just referring to attachment 2, fraud and corruption control plan. Sorry, it's attachment 5, the one with the 4, with the one with the track changes. And when I read that, there's a lot of stuff in blue, which means it's recently added. And I'm talking about specifically the table and under number 6, 7 and 8. And those sections, there's a lot of things in there that I would consider fairly common practice for an organisation like ours to have. For example, it talks about awareness initiatives for employees, risk identification assessment, those kind of things, education and training program. But this says they're just being added in now. So is that new to our organisation, or have they come from, probably the more common answer is it's come from another document into this one?
So view it this way, technically we're doing it, but we haven't written it down anywhere that we do it. So we've actually put it into a document. These are the initiatives we take.
Sure. Well, I welcome that initiative. Thanks for your work.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? No? Any need to go into debate? No? All right. So the motion in front of us is that council adopt the following revised fraud and corruption control framework documents. 2.33 fraud and corruption control policy, attachments 2 and 3, the fraud and corruption control panel, attachments 4 and 5, and integrity framework, attachment 6. So I was a bit ahead of myself. Oh, one more question, Councillor Bill? No. Oh, happy to move it, Councillor Bill. Second it, Councillor Tim. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Okay, now we move to close the meeting. The reason for a closed meeting is that this report relates to legal matters regarding outstanding infrastructure charges, and therefore it is recommended that meeting be closed to the public in accordance with section 254J 3E, legal advice obtained by the local government or legal proceedings involving the local government, including, for example, legal proceedings that may be taken by or against the local government of Local Government Regulation 2012. Do I have anyone moving the motion? Sorry. The motion is that the meeting be closed to the public in accordance with section 254J3 of Local Government Regulation 2012 to consider the following item on the agenda. Item number 5, which is confidential infrastructures charges. So I have a mover, Mayor Jeff, and a seconder, Councillor Trevor. All those in favour? Thank you. We now close the meeting.